Hey, everybody, it's Stu Smith and Jeff Nichols, and we are back. Been a little delay. We've both been a little bit busy, but we got another tactical fitness report here. And today we've been talking about trying to build the perfect bud student. And we're going to focus on buds mainly, yes, because that's our history. But you could apply this to any, spec ops level selection program.
You could replace tactical with athlete. You really could.
Yeah.
This is a very similar, if not. This is if the question was how to build your perfect college athlete, not baseball player. If I was going to build my perfect college decathlete, I would do this way too.
All right. Yeah. So we're going to start this journey off with a 12-year-old boy who is seeking to go into special ops one day. Right. He's way ahead of the power curve because I didn't even think about it till I was probably 18 or 19. And I was already at the Naval Academy at the time, going there thinking I want to be a pilot. So things change. Right. And the journey is what helped me get to where I could make that decision. I had a good foundation of athleticism and fitness that, kind of prepped me throughout the way and turned me from a boy to a man, basically. So that's kind of where we are on this.
Yeah.
This is not a boy's game, and, this is a man's game. And if you think about what occurs for an athlete whenever they go to let's say a football player goes to a D1 level, program, what typically happens? They get redshirted.
Yep.
You know why? Because they're 18 years old and they are boys playing
against 22-year-olds.
Yeah.
Just think about it like that.
Think about it like that. That's why that's some of our background thinking of why we say, you know what? Don't be in a rush to get to buds at 18 years old. That's just one of many reasons. But let's take it to 12, Jeff.
Just my reasoning for 12 is just simply like my son is in that age group and now he's in middle school, and that's, hormones, movies, sports, all those sort of things become more of an interest and less of some of the other things sometimes. And that's just why I say 12, it's because it's more for when the interest is becoming matured rather than the physical. Because here's for me, well, Jeff, why 12 and when does – so basically this, 12 to 15, 12 to 14, play sports. Play multiple sports, multiple different sports. There's very few that I would say you might want to try really start this young and keep doing it. I would say swimming would be one that you just if you're not swimming competitively and you wanted to be, get to this special forces platform, the sooner you start swimming, the more water competence and comfort, like you'll be more comfortable. And that's like, I think my only point about swimming then is that so many people can learn to swim but still be pretty uncomfortable in the water. But once they become comfortable in the water, then that's when you really see this improvement in speed, because you see this improvement in position, in form and technique. So swimming is the one sport that I would say, get them in there. Get in there at 12. Just keep swimming. And maybe the other one might be, I'm going to say jiu-jitsu or wrestling, just because there's such a great body awareness, strength, endurance, power component to those sports. So
if you really want to start off young, doing some form of martial art, before 12 years old. My son started at 6, with Taekwondo, and I can see it helped a lot with the body development and ability to produce power. Whether he kicks or he punches or does anything like that. So, calisthenics, start playing around with calisthenics. Do the basic PT pyramid. There's nothing wrong with that. That's an easy way to go. It's a good self-assessment tool. And then now you're starting to get into high school. And when you get into high school, you're probably going to have some kind of program where there is an introduction to weight training. Right? Make sure you get good coaches, with weight training, whether that is at your school, which I was very blessed to have some really good coaches and powerlifting coaches, especially on the football background. But if you don't, there's gyms out in town, become a member of, and, take some lessons there. That's always a good idea too. Especially
my suggestion
young age.
let me give you lifters some advice. I give you one piece of advice that I wish I would have given to people a long, long time ago. When you go to a gym and you're getting a membership for the very first time, because this is probably going to be the one person that will most likely be able to help you and most likely willing to help you. The oldest, biggest guy in there, not the youngest, biggest guy.
Smart.
Find the old big guy. Why the old big guy? Because that old big guy made tons of mistakes to get to where he's at, to where he's in there older and he's moving still. And he's probably stronger than the young guys, right? With the shirts that on their 3 ties is too small. Because I look back at my life and the best advice I ever got was from the big old guys, because they're like, son, this is a marathon, not a race. Slow down, move better. Full range of motion. Don't put all those pieces of advice.
Yeah, you know where I got good advice from? All the county deputies would work out at our high school gym.
Yeah.
And they were just studs. I mean, prior military, came in there lifting big. I mean, they were stronger than anybody on our football team. You know, I mean, these are grown men, you know, and they were a good source of information. Yeah.
We get into high school, and you're starting to see why Stu and I hopefully we're saying get through high school, get into some college, because it's not a lack of ability based on lack of effort. A lot of times with an 18-year-old, it's a lack of ability based on what God's plan is for your biological age, right? Even doesn't matter. Like, so that's where a lot of people, in my thoughts, are that you have that 18-year-old kid with the drive of somebody that can endure, but their body isn't going to be able to handle it. Yeah. So that's why the brain is such a magnificent thing. It will just trump your physicality, but don't overlook the fact that, you know what, I'll go until I die. It's a possibility that you might make such a stupid decision, but let the body mature.
Yeah.
That's the point of all of this. And that's why we're saying, hey, pick these athletes. So we've talked about that. We've gotten to high school. So Stu, like your average guy, like what do you want this person to experience in high school?
You know what? I would recommend multiple sports. You know, I don't have a particular number one recommendation, you know, because everybody's different. I would first recommend doing a sport that you are really interested in. Because, I mean, I played 3 sports. You know, I played one every season. You know, so I played football, then I wrestled, then I played baseball for the first 2 years, and then I played football, and we created a powerlifting team at the school. So I shook hand wrestling and said, oh, wait a second, I can go get a letter just by lifting weights?
Yeah, right.
I'm all over that.
Yeah, I wish. I didn't have that. Yeah,
that was so cool. And then, but it screwed up my baseball. I couldn't throw anymore as a catcher, so I wound up doing shot put junior, senior year. So, you know, there's nothing that I really wanted to do. You know, I love football. The other sports were just stuff to keep me busy. And, you know, do
like
that.
To compete too.
You know, yeah. And
I think that's the big thing is I don't know how to instill that into people. Like when I recommend to people, the same as you, hey, play multiple sports. Like I never had to replace will with desire. Like when I was a kid with sports, it was like, oh, it didn't matter what that sport was. I wanted to play it. And that's why I played different sports, because I will say by the end of the season, I was like, I'm tired of playing.
Oh, hell yeah. I was ready to go do something.
The only sport I was like, I could do this all year round, which I eventually did at some point. But I love football, but I was glad to see it go and wrestling come, and vice versa. And then, so I don't really need to say, like, let's say you do only have an interest in 2 sports. Well, now you have an opportunity to work on other fundamental things of value, swimming, running, and then resistance training. You just build your own off season with your own sort of type of sport.
Yeah. And, you know, let's take it here. So obviously you need an athletic foundation, or even then, you know, I have seen guys with no athletic foundation, you know, no sports, and they've done other things, but we're not talking about the outliers. You know, majority of people that are heading to buds. And like I said, we're just building the perfect bud student on statistics, you know, not necessarily, you know, there's a great bud student here that was in the band, you know, but, you know, he worked out like an animal, you know, whenever he wasn't playing the trumpet. or whatever. But
we're also not building a bud student off of numbers. Like, oh, if you get 100 and some odd push-ups, you're
right.
No. Let's talk about the persons that are probably more like to achieve a higher percentage of success straight out of, like, actually, and Stu and I both, you don't see it, but we both have the Seal Swick website up that shows the statistics of all the bar graphs. And we're just kind of, that's how we began down this road of conversation. So don't get wrapped around the minutia of numbers. That's not at all what we're looking for.
Yeah. And besides, we did a podcast already on this Hell Week success.
Yeah.
And we broke this down. So if you really want to get into the numbers, there's already a podcast on that. We're just trying to get into the person. Right now. Yep. So here's what we have established so far. We got a young kid who's been highly active, actually does stuff, to be active and competitive, start building that competitive spirit, playing multiple sports in high school. Let's talk about, let's name the top 3 sports that most Bud students have played.
I'm going to stick with swimming. That's that as far as a recommendation.
Yeah.
But it's probably to answer the question of, like, what are probably the most common sports that these guys are probably playing? I would say football, just based off of its size, is there, right? And it just, but is that necessarily the question then? Is it necessarily an advantage to play football? I don't think that it is.
I don't either.
So that's why it's like, it's a multifaceted. So for me, I'm going to say, here's sports looking back at my life personally, other people that have gone through that I saw was like, that guy really did well at Buds. Like, he didn't seem to challenge him physically as much as it did others. We're not talking the mind, folks. We're just talking the physical. I would recommend swimming. I would recommend wrestling or jiu-jitsu. I'm not talking like tinker with it for a month. I'm talking you grow up wrestling or jiu-jitsu from 9 years old. I'm talking you were that. You still are. You could cut away from wrestling like I have for 7 years, get on a wrestling mat with a competent wrestler, still get my butt kicked, but understand the sport and still kind of be a challenge. So swimming, wrestling, football, or lacrosse. Those are my 3. Those are my top 3.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Some kind of swimming background. Like I said, I grew up in Florida, so I grew up swimming, though I was never a competitive swimmer. Played football, wrestled. I would say those 2 sports probably prepared me more than anything else. Part-time job, that's something as well I would recommend. Get a very good summer, get a very good hard physical part-time job over the summer. Like we worked on farms. We worked on watermelon farms and picked watermelons all day, or tobacco.
Yeah, we did tasseling and soybeans and baled hay and milk cows or anything. I was a lifeguard for.
Yeah, wake up at 6 a.m. and start working. Just
learn it, and then you got to fit chaining. It's because that's the thing too. Is if you're working a full-time job through your high school years and probably potentially into college, and again that full-time job might be a sport, right?
Yep.
Then that changed that's a whole other conversation. But I agree. I think having to begin to learn how to manage your time and your effort. Like most people, and some people do, but that's a testament to human body, not to smart behavior, is, train real hard, party real hard, work real hard, and they're able to perpetually go through it. But what we're saying is learn how to get yourself up early-ish and be responsible in conjunction with, I got to make sure, because I'm working hard, I've got to eat. Don't skip meals, right? All that sort of stuff, because I know I got to train. And that's the value also of saying it doesn't even necessarily have to be a physical laboring job, but something that you have to be there every day and commit to. That's the never quit idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because you're putting the physical work in on your own, I hope, too. So that's for me, the athletes that I know Stu's come across, and the guys, men and women that have come and train with me as well. You can just as soon as you walk, you shake their hand, you get to know them a little bit and go, this guy means it. Like, he's been doing everything already.
Hey, another thing too, Jeff, there are 2 kind of like intangibles are, the teamwork, become a good team player. That's another, benefit you get from these athletic events. And also
learn how
just
to take instruction from someone that's not your parent.
yeah, that's a good point. And negative feedback. Negative feedback, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially if you're into martial arts, or I tell you, my daughter had ballet, and she was really strict ballet teacher. Talk about negative feedback. I mean, girls would come out of there crying.
Yeah.
My daughter, that she can handle some negative feedback. So, anything, that, requires perfection, whether it's an art or it's a martial art, even, things that you got to practice over and over and over again to get it right, you're going to mess it up. Right. And getting that negative feedback and be able to handle it and then come back and do the right, procedure or whatever. That's going to be very beneficial for you. The other one too is a little mental toughness. I can't tell you how many times I, played a football game with an injury, wrestled with an injury.
Right. And that's the thing, choosing outdoor sports that weather will impact, but if it's not severe, it won't impede.
Yeah.
Football in the rain, it's cold or cold.
Football
right?
in Florida in the summer.
Swimming like here, like in the where I grew up in the Midwest, man. Like the windiest state is Iowa. Has more windmills than like driving to Minnesota in December for a swim meet.
Ooh.
Right. Even though it's like even to here, like also you'll swim outdoor here in December here. I mean, granted, the water's warm here. Well, in the Y, they keep the Y like at 83 degrees in January, kind of thing. So, but yeah, you gotta get your half naked butt in the water and get in and out, and it's just
sometimes getting wet at 6 a.m. is very, very hard. That's why swimming, because one, you got to get up early, you got to swim before school. I mean, there's a thing.
It's like ice hockey, man. You look like the rink. How they have to schedule rink time in like a city like this where you have multiple different clubs, and it's like, okay, well, the rink we can only get ice time from 3:30 to 4:30 a.m.
Right. Or 10 p.m., on a school night.
No, man. Like I get it. Like I'm kind of joking around with the thumbs down, but I'll be honest with you, and I know you're the truth. I'm going thumbs down because I'm 40. When I was 18, I'd have been like, I'm all about it. I don't care. Set me on fire.
You love it, do it.
Yeah, so we get it, folks. We do.
Yeah. So all right, so that takes us through high school, pretty much.
So, and so like for me, the next question is already posed. I want to know how you think. It's like, okay, the average person is not a college athlete, so we're not going to necessarily hammer like be a college athlete. You're like, I'm not good enough to play college football or college football.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I did everything I could to try to play college football at Navy, and they stunk. And I didn't make it. I played rugby, which was just as fun and it was just as challenging, but not the same. But anyway, we're definitely not saying you have to be a college athlete. If you are, even better.
It can be. See, that's the conundrum. Is like if you're playing football at the University of Iowa, you have no off season.
No.
That's not relevant to training for something other than football. They have off seasons.
Good point.
So with Coach Doyle and his staff, that's not a dig.
Yeah.
Their job is to train these guys year round. But unless you got guys that do run track at Iowa and play football, and you get the same thing with LSU, Oregon, Arkansas, the big time schools, the secondary and wide receivers and probably their offensive and defense linemen, probably your thrower and short. So let's not talk about that. Your average college student that was a busy, a productive high school athlete that's in decent shape, but now they've got no sport. How would you recommend for at least the first 2 years?
That's the perfect. If your goal is to go into spec war, that's the perfect thing. Because one, you got all these facilities now, where you might not have had a great pool to swim in or a great weight room. And now you got time, believe it or not. I mean, you might not have time per day to train a lot, but you have time over years to prepare your body properly. And that's where periodization has to come in. And, you got to go through your lift cycles. You got to go through your high rep calisthenic running, swimming cycles. You got to go through, more cardio cycles. and just figure out where your weaknesses are. You know, you can start off with the PST, because you're not going to get 2 buds unless you crush the PST. So you can start off there, and then you can kind of like tailor your workouts towards your weaknesses. And then, you know, let's not train for the PST year round. Let's just do it for a cycle or 2. And then let's do something else. Let's get your body used to, you know, the load bearing challenges of buds, you know, the log PTs and the boats, and get the lifting and get strong and, you know, things like that. So,
you know, treat the PST like it. I think treating the PST like it's its own sport or its own event, right? And if you kind of look at it like, compare it to a sport, say like the PST is a sport, let's compare it to baseball. Now, granted, the aspects of practicing for baseball have a lot of resemblance to the sport, but it's not always team on field, pitcher versus batter, and the minutia of the sport. It's okay. Let's hit off a tee. Let's work on batting press. Let's do throwing drills. Let's bunt practices. All these different mechanics that make up. And same with the PST. So we don't just want to every single day in baseball isn't just live hitting and pitching. We got to develop it. So every single day isn't the PST volume and speed. It's work the whole aspect of the push-pull. You see, that's why there's so many common threads between sport and the tactical, because we get a lot of people, and sometimes as coaches do, we really, coaches perpetuate it. We get too locked on to what's on the bar rather than what's under it, right? The person. And so you got to treat yourself like that too, because you're not the number that gets you into buds, because we can see looking right now that the numbers now, though there is a more of a prevalence in performing better in the PST, but you know, if you max them out, there's no guarantee of success. So that's why we put so much saying, listen, it's the process, because we already have numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know what? You know, and notice one thing we did not say. We did not say, okay, you're out of high school, you're 18 years old, time to go to buds. Now, not knocking anybody who is at 18 and going to buds. There are people who make it through. It is not a common feat. You know, most bud students are actually a little bit older, or most buds graduates, I should say, are actually a little bit older. One thing that we have seen here, what a lot of guys will do that are training with us locally, will graduate high school and listen to my advice. They don't want to go to college, but they'll go to the community college here in our county, and they'll take a scuba course. They'll take an EMT course, and they're finally doing something that they're really interested in doing, and they crush it. And they're like, well, you know what? That wasn't so bad. Maybe I'll finish like my first 2 years and get my AA, and then, you know, head to buds. Hey, whatever floats your boat. But, you know, let's start take some time, focus on your training, focus specifically on your training, because you got to get 2 buds, you got to get through buds, and you got to start that preparation now. If you go to your boot camp or you go to your recruiter and you've never even done a 500-yard swim before, you know, you're on their time now. Right? You're on their time to ship. And we've discussed this many times in previous podcasts. I'm not going to go into it, but you know, there is something to be said about being just a little bit older, a little bit more mature, you know, heading to buds. And like I said, we're trying to build the perfect bud student. I would say, you know, roughly 20 to 23, somewhere in that time frame, with all those athletic experiences. Now let's talk a little bit about some numbers. Let's just say, what kind of pound for pound strength ratio would you recommend on certain exercises?
Yeah, I mean, again, because that's like given the right parameters, right? All we're doing is really shaping behavior, and at the end of the behavior, we should be able to get hopefully to some numbers, right? Hopefully to some numbers.
Yeah. Well, you know, I tell you what, instead of starting,
I'm saying numbers as far as timeline. Like, I think that my numbers, what I'm willing to say is like, we've got this college student. He's working on that 2-year post high school to mature and develop. My numbers are, if it were me, and because we're not looking at, hey, well, he's close to his degree, like let's get an education. that as a parent, I'm going to say, if you got done with 2, do 4.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
talking building the physical parameters, right?
Yeah.
So 2 years, graduate high school, train systematically for 2 years, to include get your AA, because it gets you in the system of the – we want to take you out of this high school in droves, get off the bus, which is a fine system. But that system does – when you get yourself in the military, yeah, there's some getting in lines, plenty of it. But when you get into this, you got to take care of yourself. You've got to train yourself. You got to keep yourself accountable. That college, get in your car, drive to university, stay in a dorm, being an adult matters. Okay.
Yeah,
so
you'll never see advancement if you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's to say, again, that's not to say that there is someone that I've trained here in person about to show up at Buds. He does not get through Buds safely, successfully, and without any physical issues. I will be fucking surprised. I'm that sure he's only 18. He just turned 18. And it's the only one I've ever – this kid. I've never seen someone 18 like that, except for the 2 18-year-olds who went through my Buds. I swear I was looking at the face of Andy Urbito.
Yes. Yeah.
Swear to God, I was like, this is Andy. This no problem. No issues. So I'll put my reputation on it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get catastrophically injured, he won't quit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but anyways,
cool. Yeah.
So that's kind of my thoughts with timeline and numbers. Now we could say in that timeline, don't let your running get so chronically inefficient. Don't let your running or swimming do that. That's the big thing, is like, don't get so hyper focused like a lot of people can because of accessibility of resistance training or the accessibility of running shoes.
Well, you know what? It goes both ways. I've seen guys get super focused on running too much. And I've seen guys get super focused on lifting too much. They're afraid to lose their gains. I always hate that. When people say, hey, I don't want to do so much cardio because I'm going to lose all my gains. It's like, well, you don't want to go to Buds then because you're going to do a lot of cardio at Buds. So let's do this. Perfect score on the PST. Like, what do you recommend? What do you recommend?
Just for something that I know, if it's done within the parameters of the PST, I'm comfortable saying you can physically probably handle it. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 20 pull-ups, sub 8:30 run, sub 8:30 swim.
Yeah. I think that's sub 8:30 run is still fast for me.
Yeah,
I would say 9 minutes.
Yeah.
I think I've maybe only hit 8:30 once. But yeah, you usually, if you can run now, that's a good zone score that's going to get you 2 Buds with some gravy, because you need gravy because you're going to go through boot camp. And then there are stories, by the way, of people who barely made that little standard, right? Before they go to boot camp, they get deconditioned at boot camp. First day of prep, they don't pass the PST, they're out of the program.
Yeah.
So you need to be in such condition before you go to Buds or before you go to boot camp to be able to endure boot camp as a taper and then come back still strong enough to crush the PST.
Yep.
So there is a certain level that you need to be going in. So those numbers that Jeff just said, ideal for that. You will be well above average even after some deconditioning and getting sick during boot camp.
And so just from an administrative standpoint, because in the past, like Mitch Aguiar is an example. He went to boot camp without any idea of what was ahead of him for SEAL training.
That is amazing.
But what Mitch also didn't have to do was any of the Buds prep, the SEAL prep stuff that's at Great Lakes. No, they didn't. He just had to pass a PST, right? Yeah. And that was the way it used to be. So big mistake, thinking for somehow without your recruiter correcting you, which I don't know how it's possible, thinking you could just get in shape at boot camp.
Yeah.
Somehow that's still happening. People are still somehow getting billets in certain states without ever really passing the PST, which again, this is the conversation we've had And I'm just like, I thought the system was, and again, it's not to highlight any blemishes. It's just to guys, men and women, prepare properly, give yourself time.
Yes. Amen. So there you go. There's good PST scores. Now let's talk about some of the lifts that maybe people should be good at doing before they go to buds. What would you say? Let's 3 or 4 lifts that you would recommend people do, and for pound, where should they be, you think?
Yeah. I'm actually going to, as much as I think that squatting is important, like real squatting, I would say a split squat. I'd rather have people in split squatting lunging positions.
Okay.
In a position like, for me, especially as you get towards the end of that training session, like where we still want to stimulate, but I don't want to put the miles in. Maybe I go a split squat position. I think that obviously a deadlift is always good, but again, I want to talk about the movement, not so much like the minutia of it.
Right.
I just think that movement pattern is so good to stack that spine and flex those hips and all those sort of things. And it's obviously, so it ends up being bench, squat, deadlift. Those are the 3 for me, not because they are the three things you should be doing the most. I think that you should have learned those because the joint angles that come from those that go into really the exercises that you should be doing a lot of need to happen, right? So lots of pull-ups, right? But the stability to be able to do pull-ups or improve them doesn't necessarily come from the pull-up. It comes from strengthening the back and those sort of things. So to limit to 3, I'm still going to say bench, squat, deadlift, but I may still, instead of just depending on the person, right? For someone that needs a lot more leg strength to endure the miles, I'm going to squat them more. Someone that's a little bit heavier that needs to put on smarter miles to not get the shin splints, I'll probably put them in a split squat position.
I like that.
At the end of the day, those are my 3.
I like that. Yeah, deadlift. Now, as far as, if you look at the TAP test that they offer now, the Tactical Athlete program test, that they have a 1.5 to 2.0, I think, is the weight for a deadlift. That's your body weight. So 1.5 times your body weight, or 2.0 times your body weight, which is a lot. 2 times your body weight is that's a
proper lift. That's a no joke.
That's a no joke. I mean, you're a 200-pound guy, you got to deadlift 400 pounds. Should you be able to do that? Will it make a big difference if you can't?
Depends on what it looks like. That's the problem, is we put a number associated to it.
Yeah.
Everyone's different, because 2 times body weight, it's like this. What just folks is, you go to any gym in the world and you step on any treadmill. It has a little heart rate monitor that links up to the polar, and it gives you these fat burning zones. Well, they don't really matter, because that's saying that every single person that gets on that, regardless of state of training, age, size, whatever, gender, you're going to be in the same scale. So that's why it depends, because that's why it's hard to put a number to this stuff.
Yeah, I would say this. I would say if you can do 1.5 times your body weight, you've created a good enough lift foundation to be able to endure anything that's going to be on your head or shoulder.
Yeah.
At buds, be it a boat or a log or a body.
For sure. And that's why I kind of like that body weight. It ends up being, if you kind of do some of the math and that you look at, like with Hatfield and stuff, like when we say like 1.5 times body weight each person, it ends up falling somewhere pretty close to 75% of 1 RM or 2 or 5. Or 5 RMs. It kind of falls all in there. So if you kind of take a look at the numbers like a nerd like I am.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers here for their Hell Week success, and it's like their worst score they had for deadlift was 1.5 times body weight.
Yeah.
That was on the low end.
Yeah.
And the best score they had was 2.3 times their body weight.
Yep. Yeah. So it's if you look at each one of the metrics on their website independently, that's a bad way to direct your training. Just so know that, like, you're like, well, this guy, he is at 25 pull-ups or more, and I'm only at 6, so I'm going to focus all my attention on the pull-up. No, that's why we're saying if you're given the right timeline, that focus is that climb is far less steep. You know what I mean?
Hey, it's funny too, though. What I read you from was the best and worst PRT or NSL prep exit scores who completed Hell Week.
Yeah.
2.3 and 1.5. So anywhere in that range, they completed Hell Week. But if you look on the next chart, it says best and worst PRT scores who dropped from training, 2.3 and 1.5.
Yep.
So
same.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're just trying to build a durable body really at this point. So let's say, 1.5, if you can do your body weight on bench press, double digits, that's pretty good. If you can go over 20, that's even better.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean to be that. If you can do double digits on a 25-pound pull-up, that's good. I would say if you can practice doing lunges with, overhead lunges with a plate, that's a really good,
real good one.
really good option. Get used to doing that for, 100 yards.
Yeah.
I
put your thumb. I always like put thumbs in the hole.
Yep.
Of the plate. It just seems to get you in a pretty similar position that you're going to have to hold that log.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Good one.
My thumbs in the hole.
Yeah. Yeah, usually what we do is we make little really hard, compact sandbags, and we just carry them like that and just lunge with them, squat with them on your shoulder. And that's really what we're trying to do right now. We got you into buds, with your history and your PST scores. Now we're just trying to find little ways to help you endure buds a little bit better, and having some strength foundation is the short answer. Right.
Yeah. And that's so this, all of these things, like one of the things I hear in my head a lot of times when I know Stu and I are talking, we're giving out a lot of information. It may seem a little bit overwhelming and redundant, but if you look at, if you plan out what we're saying over a year and a half, it's not redundant. It's not overwhelming either.
Yeah. It's
people get overwhelmed when they say, you should be doing this sport and we should be doing these lifts and doing that and putting these miles in. Oh my God. So what we did was like, well, I got to do them all right now.
No.
Yeah. Over a proper timeline is its best implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. Running, swimming, right? That's probably the number one and number two issue for most people at buds. If it's not, getting crushed under a log or a boat.
Yeah. The biggest mistake I think with those two things was somebody that, like we're talking, like they get deep into training and they have a timeline they're going to meet, is that they put off focusing primarily on running or swimming too long. Like you get to a point where most guys and women, most men get to the point where like, I just need to really improve. I'm pretty happy with everything else, but my running is poor or my swimming is. It becomes a point of focus too late. So if my suggestion with any athlete you're starting to go to college, maybe you have a decent strength background because you were on the weight, you're a strength athlete in high school, but you get in and go, I really need to work on my swimming, but in conjunction, I'm going to continue to do all this resistance work. No, you stop. You become a swimmer because you're going to learn that resistance piece right away again. You'll pick it right up.
Yep.
Right. And the same thing, goes with swimming or like swimming as well. It's like, man, I'm struggling with my stroke. Well, the next 4 months, you just need to become a swimmer. Well, what about my gains? Well, if you're worried about that, then you're not worried about buds. Like, focus on what you need to improve first the most.
Yeah. Because here's the deal.
Like at the end. Like, I'll get it at the end.
Here's the deal. You're going to be running 4-mile timed runs every week. And that may not sound like a lot, but, a 4-mile timed run is not easy. It's a gut check every time you do it. And then 2-mile swims with fins in the ocean. That's where a lot of people fail and they get kicked out of buds for performing in those two areas. So if you're a good time for you to be focused on is if you can get to buds and you can already run between 27 and 28 minutes on a 4-mile timed run, you're in the zone. And if you do the math, that's a 7-minute mile, just a little bit better than a 7-minute mile. And you're going to be way above average. You have enough gravy to meet the minimum standards, at least the first 2 phases, because you're looking at 31 minutes for first phase or 32. I can't remember,
Yep.
but it's 31 or 32 minutes for first phase 4 mile timed run. Then it drops a minute for second.
It goes to
phase,
28, I think, is third phase. Yeah.
Right. So I guess maybe it's 30, 29 and 28.
Something.
Like I said, it's on the website. You can reference it at sealswick.com.
This is like my last this is a closing sort of perspective thing that I had to get people to start thinking. It's not about doing. So think about let's create a hypothetical person real quick. John, we'll call him, right? He is he loves to run. He runs a couple miles every day after work, most like 3 days a week. But now you take imaginary John and go, hey, for the next 27 weeks, every Saturday morning, you're gonna do a race, a 5K every Saturday. You gotta get better every race for the next 6 months. And then he goes, oh, that's kind of gonna take the fun out of running, isn't it? Yeah. So now we say, well, how am I gonna train for that? Because that's what we're doing with Buds. And oh, by the way, John works in IT. Not to take away, but he's sedentary. He lives a clean life. He shops at Whole Foods every day, gets his lunch, and he's just a very particular man. But he's chilling out. He's not missing breakfast. He's not staying up late. He's your average dude. Well, now you take a Bud student. Oh, you're going to run every Monday as fast as you can for a race. Oh, and by the way, every waking moment from basically 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, you'll be in some form of physical or emotional duress.
Yeah, and I wish it was every Monday, because then at least I had a Sunday off to prepare. Right. Some days you're doing split squats with a log on your back.
Yeah.
With your boat crew getting hammered doing legs, and then you got to run a 4 mile timed run on a Friday.
So that's the question is so it's not even about what Buds looks like and what imaginary John looks like. No. You have not imaginary person training for Buds now. How do you train to get somebody to train for something where they're literally every single day of Buds, there is a race? So that is a tremendous amount of volume. Yeah. You don't train like Buds to get to, you have to elongate it.
Yes.
Slowly. It's Shawshank Redemption, man. He broke out with a spoon. Like, you have got to take it a bite size at a time, even when you're 18.
And that's the problem when you join and you're 18 years old and you've never done a PST before in your life. You've never swum 500 yards. You don't know what your mile and a half time is, and you go through DEP and you're in the DEP program. You got your ship date, which is now 6 months away. You still haven't even passed the PST to get to Buds yet.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to spend the next 6 months doing that. And then hopefully you're going to be good enough scores to get through boot camp, go through that deloading phase of boot camp, and have good enough scores to get into Buds. But guess what? One thing you've neglected in that little short period of time is to prepare to get through Buds.
Yeah,
that's really what we're trying to discuss here.
You're trying to acquire capacity to even train that much. Yeah. It's not like, oh, I got to train this much to do. No. You have to slowly train so you can train that much so you can get to those numbers. It doesn't just go volume equals work equals completion. Doesn't work that way.
Takes time. Be patient.
Yeah.
All right. So in a nutshell, what have we created here? We created a
22-year-old male that played multiple sports to include probably wrestling, swimming, football, lacrosse-ish.
Yeah.
Took
some time to work on his weaknesses.
Yep.
To get to Buds.
He didn't shorten the timeline based off of enthusiasm, right? Got a good program. He allowed himself enough time to make some mistakes those first 6 to 8 months.
Yep.
As well.
And acute
injuries.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get over injuries because that happens.
Deal with them. Learn. That's the other process too. Is if your training period is so short, you've never had to deal with issues that will come up. If you've trained for 2 years and those injuries have accrued slowly, you've learned how to, I need to rest here and ice here and eat better here. Learning those behaviors. We're shaping behavior. That's what we're doing for 2 years. At the end of the day, we're shaping behavior that when you jump into buds, you're like, very similar type behavior I've lived, and I've learned how to heal and endure and even turn it off if I need to.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So obviously there's no one answer to this question. There's no equation that matches everybody who goes to buds. You know, I've seen guys who are barely 5 feet tall and 130 pounds make it through buds. I've seen guys who are 6'7", 225 pounds make it through buds. You know, it's just everybody in between. And, you know, I think diversity makes us stronger, you know, in all that, that gets in there, because there are things that the little guys can do that the big guys can't, and vice versa.
And you'll be able to draw strength from that. Like that's what's really cool about buds is you do root for the guys. You want to root for them all, because you want guys that are different than you and have more versatile than you, or less for that. It's that complementary versatility that we're looking for. The community is, and it's not just one person.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. That's a very good point. That's a good way to end it, actually. I like that, Jeff.
All right. Awesome, Stu. I appreciate it, brother.
All right. Thank you, guys. Hey, check out the next one. I'm not sure when it'll be up, but
soon.
It's going to be something.
I got tomorrow.
Cool. All right. Yeah, we'll do another one in the next 24 hours. We'll see you later.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Stu.